the map veto and see where we'll be heading between EXG and Rise, the battle for 7th place.
And Excelerate does have a win in the second half of the season. Now, a lot changes when we go to that break and we come back and we go through weeks 8 through 14. Accelerate picked up a pretty surprising victory over Team Reciprocity that I don't think a lot of people anticipated. Rise looked like they were completely done for against EG last week, and then managed to be the first team to secure a point in that match. And even though it ended up being a draw, I think that surprised a lot of people. So in this match, I think we're going to see some pretty even play between these two teams. I would be surprised if it ends up being a lopsided affair. But we're going to go to Villa, with Accelerate starting on defense and Rise Nation being the very first team to attack.
Villa's a weird one for me because we haven't really seen a lot of tape on either of these teams on Villa. So both of these teams also getting new coaches. I didn't talk about Remorse coming in for Rise on their side when I did talk about Pojo. So both teams coming in with new coaches in recent weeks in the second half. Maybe some new developments on a new map they haven't really brought into their wheelhouse all that often.
I mean, if you look at Rise coming through the second half of the season, they've narrowly lost to Space Station in week number 1 of the second half, which is week 8, 5-7.
Yeah.
That's as close as it gets. At least you take SSG to the 12th round. Then they have a bye. Then they beat Reciprocity, and then they draw EG. Those are 3 teams that are all currently in the hunt for a playoff spot. For Rise, it actually gets easier as the rest of the season goes on because they've already played 3 of the teams that are sitting in the top 4 of the standings. So for Rise, this is probably their best opportunity to pick up points moving forward. And whether it's Remorse's impact, whether it's also Crazy and Acid coming onto this roster, Rise have looked much better, and you think so too. As you'll give Rise the nod in our community vote 49-37, but a 14% draw is a lot higher than we usually see.
Yeah, and I can understand that as we get underway between Rise and Accelerate on Villa. Again, I understand where they're coming from. It's a strong possibility. You've got 2 points currently separating these two teams in the standings. Not hard to believe that maybe this one could come down to the wire. Now, Villa, a notoriously defender-sided map, at least as far as the statistics go, but we've seen a couple instances of Villa in the last few weeks in other regions right now that have kind of turned that notion on its head a little bit. We saw a very attacker-sided Villa game in EU just a couple weeks ago.
It's actually been a very interesting point of conversation for a lot of viewers as well as a lot of the teams as to how maybe just the changes to the leaning that we saw and then the introduction of Nomad to Pro League has really changed how aggressive the defenders could be. And that's kind of what encapsulated the first half of our season was extremely aggressive defenses, which is polar opposite from what we had a couple seasons back when Lion was so dominant. He basically paralyzed and pinned you down, making it so that as a defender, your opportunity to roam was often painful. So it was quite a big change, and yeah, almost every map, if not every map, had a period of time where it was more defender-sided than attacker-sided. That's something that you don't necessarily see all the time. Something you also don't see all the time if we look towards the ban phase is a buck ban. It's going to come out from Rise Nation to counter Accelerate, and, well, I mean, it came out last week in the Dark Zero matchup, and EXG suffered. They suffered mightily because you know how good Achieved is on Buck. Put him on other roles. He didn't look quite as comfortable, and I don't think Accelerate's fortunes are as strong when you don't allow Achieved on that Buck role.
One of the scariest things is that Rise has opted not to ban a C4 operator on the defense, and it looks like Achieved is going to lock in the Valkyrie for his first round on the defensive side. Acid 6 picking over to the Nomad from the Glaz. The Glaz, an intimidating operator. We were talking about this a couple hours ago about how no one will realistically peek a smoke, even if you're unsure if they have a Glaz on the lineup or not. As long as he's not banned, you're going to back off. The intimidation factor also coming out for Nomad. Just the presence, whether she has put an air jab there or not, both those operators facilitating a similar role, which is an intimidation factor in keeping the defenders at bay from trying to push into flanking routes or awkward positions or unpopular angles that the attacking team might not be expecting.
With the Nomad, especially that air jab, it currently doesn't make any noise, even though that's being changed on the TS server, or at least trialed on the test server at the moment. So that's a change that you can look towards in the future. But you're very right when you say that. Just the presence of a Nomad in the game, not even necessarily on the enemy's team, because you don't necessarily know if they've 6 picked into a Nomad. You're not entirely certain if there's going to be one that you're going to see in the 3 minutes of any given round, unless she's banned. it's going to give you some hesitation as to how you roam. Are you still going to be as aggressive and take chances, possibly trying to hold map control aggressively, knowing that there might be an operator who not only will knock you down and make you vulnerable for a couple seconds, but also alert the rest of their team to your presence? You might want to play a little bit more static and safe. And I think that's what we see from teams now, with the way that they are not roaming as aggressively, as I noted, as we saw in the first half of that season.
And honestly, when you're taking out the Buck, if you're on Rise Nation on the attacking ban, you're probably bringing the Nomad to try and lock down Achieved on his defensive side. Crazy, though, will take down Thomas. As it appeared, it was Hyper garnering that kill up through the floorboards, but now Hyper taking a lot of damage, down to 1 HP, and he'll be downed by the residual damage of the Legion Mine. Look to withstand the top of those south stairs, and pre-fires from Crazy into the south hallway now as he tries to repel any defenders trying to push through and clean up that kill onto Hyper. He's still 5 HP, but an Echo drone was also taken down by Crazy in the process. So a decent push here for Rise. They've lost a lot of health onto Hyper, but they do have the man advantage as Thomas was felled. You've got two members from the defense now from Excelerate up at 90, and the Hibana charges coming out onto the back of the bar wall.
Tough luck to lose the Legion first, and even though Tomas almost is credited with a kill from the grave onto Hyper, keep in mind that Hibana, or Zofia rather, has that withstand ability, which is unique to her operator. She's able to get herself back up. I'm a little bit puzzled as to why Rise didn't rotate another body, because when you withstand, you only get 5 HP. When you get picked back up, you get 20. That's 15 HP that Hyper will have lost. Crazy, I think, was more wary of somebody pushing from Classical Hall, which is where Schlongi is playing down by 90. Could have possibly been used as bait, and questionable decision-making from Rise there. I understand why they did it, but whether you could have possibly gotten a third body involved to maybe pick Hyper up, you'll see later on. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't take too much from an SMG-11 to take out Hyper, and that'll be Crusher, credited with the very first kill for EXG, but he'll lose a member of his team in the process, and two of the most powerful operators in the final 30 seconds of a round. An Echo and a Legion will be denied. They'll lose another now, too, as Rise look to be in the driver's seat here, and they're kickstarting their offense in round number 1.
Crusher in behind the bar, and Achieve loses his head on a great peek there from Crazy. Now down to 5 HP in behind the bar. Crusher, honestly, just trying to work out of a phone booth right now. Shrouded in his own smoke, prone behind a bar now, being collapsed upon from every possible angle, and he looks away at the worst possible time. England will scamper right on by with that diffuser. Last Toxic Babe attempting to repel the plant attempt, but Crazy again collects another one. Crazy on a run there, and this is kind of what we've seen from Crazy ever since coming over to Rise Nation, is this Inception under the Fragger roll, kind of filling in where many thought Ghost would be.
That was the idea, right?
Yeah.
Vertical was the main point of contact for Rise Nation through most of this team's existence, and he was on that role going all the way back to Infamy, well over a year ago. And when Vertical left, you have to replace one of the most consistent fraggers in all of North America, and you have to do it in a way that he can also synergize with Hyper. Now, Hyper was a relatively new pickup to this Rise roster, but he came in and he fit so well, and he did a valiant job. After losing Vertical, I think his prowess fell off a little bit. You bring in Ghost, a lot of people think Ghost is going to play aggressively. It did need some role changes for Rise. Ghost looked far more comfortable playing a support role, but the problem was that Rise looked far more toothless on their attacks. You pick up Crazy, who's somebody whose aggressiveness and general game sense works quite well on almost every roster he's played on, and he's fitting this Rise Nation roster a lot better than Ghost did, and a lot better than former members of this team have as well. Now, big shoes to fill with Vertical stepping off of your roster. You can see what he can do in the games that he's played on Rogue since joining the team, but Crazy looks a lot more comfortable. And with it, Rise Nation's stock as a team has risen. Good credit to whoever decided to seek out Crazy and pick him up onto that team.
You can see it in their recent performances, whether it's a loss or a win or a draw, really. You have that game against Space Station Gaming, the first week back for Rise Nation. And they take Space Station Gaming the distance on Oregon. A 7-5 loss, albeit, but a much better performance and honestly just a much better game as a whole from the team of Rise Nation. And then you look at last week's game against Evil Geniuses, down 4-0, but the resiliency to battle back with 6 straight rounds of their own to guarantee a point. Couldn't lock it out for 3, but again, it's small steps here for Rise to continue improving. And again, get out of that possible relegation spot and look forward to Season 10.
The other thing, too, is that England has looked a lot more comfortable in his roles, too. And that might just be that he has less to do as the main IGL on that team and most of the primary shot calling. England has shown himself capable of killing on just about any operator, but if he doesn't have the space as an anchor with good roamers, then obviously his ability to hold off a 1v3 or a 1v4 or a 2v4 on site diminishes greatly, just like with every other team. So, we look towards both Crazy and England, maybe other members of the team of Rise Nation, how they're going to play. Crazy started off with a 4K in that very first round, and Rise Nation's going to have an opportunity to attack the exact same site, as EXG doesn't opt to go outside of this Aviator game site. Once again, Study is going to be the main point of contact here. Lots of tools on Rise Nation's disposal to be able to open that up. You'll start with the hard destruction. An impact grenade actually looks like it might have stopped some of those XK-Ros, so this might be a bit of a trickier spot for Rise Nation to be able to get into the site. Might precipitate an attack over on the game side, as Aviator might be out of control here, unless Rise can pressure 90, and there you go. It's going to be Vandal on that position, and get Bio, who just was peeking around on his camera. Schlongi will refrag, though. Both teams lose one.
You still have Crazy garnering a lot of information with that electronic sensor. You got Hyper in behind Crazy. They're double peeking towards 90, and that's Schlongi, who has continuously overhealed himself in this position, trying to win out the contest. A great pre-fire crouch height will drop Hyper and extend the man advantage back in the favor of Excelerate Gaming. Acid taking a lot of damage from down below. Sorry. But now looking in prone.
England will be able to take out Achieved here and put us in a 3v3. And down goes Crazy. Schlongi posted up on this 90 position with two very important kills, and Rise Nation's offense that we saw in round number 1 now starts to sputter. This long angle that's being held by Acid won't do him well without an ACOG, and there's going to be some coordination with Crusher securing that kill. Finding what little is left of England, cannot get the kill onto Tomas. As the Legion holds the vault. He's the very first casualty in round 1, and he's involved with the very final casualty of round number 2, but he's the aggressor this time around. Accelerate, making some steps to be able to hold the site that they failed to do so in round number 1 for round number 2. And it was a much better hold. A lot of that came down to the way that they were unable to allow, or they were able to disallow Rise from getting in via those XK-Ros. The soft destruction and the hard destruction from Rise was foiled at every step of the way. You saw that with the Nomad of Acid downstairs, getting shot through the floor as Nomad was trying to contest all the way upwards. And then also for England, not being able to get those hard destructive tools from Hibana off on the study wall.
Forgot how to breathe there for a minute, but we're all good. Over to Trophy and Statuary now, as the defense will extend. Accelerate able to equalize, like you said. The operator lineup for Rise Nation, continuously static. No changes being made, and I really don't see why you would make any changes. Same thing on the side of EXG. No changes to the defensive side. They're perfectly content. It's Achieved, really, the only one making any real rotations on Defender Operator. First round playing the Valkyrie, now swapping over to the Jaeger. You got to be concerned about that. You can see the number of throwables from the side of Rise Nation. You got England with flashbangs, you got Vandal with flashbangs, and the remote detonation charge. You got Hyper with concussion mines and impacts, Acid with the air jabs as well on the Nomad. It's a good position to try and take here with the Jaeger. And you've got two ADSs stacked in behind the Astronomy desk, a common pivot point for this defense. And you've also got a little bit of a roam happening from Achieved on the far side now. This is something we don't really see too often. Usually, when you're playing Trophy and Statuary, you're worried about verticality, not horizontal roam over towards the Aviator and Bar. It's not that we've never seen it before. It's just the more common practice is getting, especially someone like Achieved with the Nitro Cell down below. Although maybe this is Pojo reading into the predictability of Accelerate and trying to swap things up.
Could possibly be. I mean, look at just the map control that Accelerate has right now, and I'm sure that they're in a position where, as long as they're not playing loosely, they can be able to get back to site quickly lest they get pinched. Now, you don't really need to worry about map control when you're doing Aviator games because you're typically going to want to hold 90 in Classical, which is where you see Hyper looking down, and then you're also going to probably have somebody playing inside of the site looking below you. That's going to be the extent of the map control that you're going to hold. When you look at Trophy and Statuary, it's not uncommon to see people playing inside of the Aviator Games sites, or where you would rather see the sites, were the bombs there. So Excelerate can just try to wear as much time down here on Rise Nation's clock as they can. Already over a minute gone in round number 3, and Excelerate, as you mentioned, we're bringing the same tools. As long as you can keep that Echo and the Legion alive, then you're going to have tons of information for those final 30 to 40 seconds of the execute. And given the pace that Rise has set, it's very likely that we're going to see them need the remainder of this entire round before they can actually put something together. That puts a lot of value into the denial operators that Rise are going to struggle to take down. As Tomas, a big double kill, he takes a gamble, jumps outside of the closet. He's rewarded for his efforts with both Hibana and Ash, two very prime operators.
No more breach potential for the side of Rise Nation as you have a dual push right now for Crazy. Hyper will decapitate Schlongi, and now the third member of Rise will file in behind, as that is Acid vaulting out a window, sorry. He was already in the hallway, but he's going to extend out and head to the rooftops now, as the diffuser is surrendered outside of that walk-in closet window, and time ticking away with 50 seconds remaining. Acid is going to have to make a mad dash to the diffuser, make it in, and win this engagement against Tomas. Achieved, though, will win it out onto Hyper. A trade now for Crazy, as Achieved was felled, but Crush on the immediate trade. It leaves Acid alone as he triggers a Legion Mine outside the walk-in closet. Pre-fires from Tomas will not connect and finish him off. Oh, another one will peek out. 2 collected for Acid now, and 30 seconds on the clock, but Bio has a 3 armor with 100 HP and the ACOG advantage inside of the bathroom, though the pre-fire gives away his position. Acid almost able to connect as Bio tries to retreat back into Astronomy, and there we go. Bio able to turn the corner as yet another Legion Mine was triggered. Acid finding every single one placed across the map, constantly giving away his location. Bio, with an extension into bathroom, almost cost them the round.
It was a gamble that Excelerate took that you're very correct. If that Echo had have overstayed his welcome inside of the bathroom by even half a second, that probably would have gone the way of Acid, and what was a 1v3 that looked unwinnable for Rise Nation would have ended up going in their column. And sometimes, between teams this evenly matched, that one round makes a huge difference. I was mostly interested with the way that Tomas played that Legion, and you saw that he changed where he was playing as that round went on. He knew he had Diffuser down outside of the closet window. What did he do? He threw a goo mine on the Diffuser. Not only does it give away the position of the Nomad, which lucky for the rest of his team, they knew that it was the very final member left because they killed everybody else, but also able to guard the remaining entrances from that direction into sight. You don't need to put so much stock in one half of the site if you know that there's no way to get there from your opponent. And that's exactly what happened with Acid. The only way for him in was either through that bathroom or through the bedroom door. He got goo mines in both of those positions. Not only is he going to get slowed down, pause, pull the goo mine out of your foot, but also he's going to be in a position where you know he doesn't have time to rotate and you can just hold that angle, which is what you saw from the Echo. Just goes to show you the power of keeping operators like Legion alive for as long as humanly possible. And I have to imagine, after Thomas's early death in round number 1, there was a call made, don't overextend, don't get too aggressive, we need you alive. Almost single-handedly won them that round, not only picking up 2 kills, but also being instrumental in the remainder of the kills that were done as cleanup from the rest of his team.
It's a good call to be had there for Excelerate to prioritize the life of one. Now, Bio will be taking up a role popularly facilitated by Achieved, and Achieved remains on the carousel of operators on the defensive side this evening. He's now on his 3rd new operator onto the Vigil, and again, he'll look to roam with a little more success. Again, these Legion Mines. So oppressive here as Hyper will trigger one and hop right back out the window. You've got pressure from the Astronomy stairs, and you've got Crazy spotting every piece of electronic utility inside of the master bedroom, the master bathroom, and they'll look to do some reconstruction on the floorboards. 2 reinforcements on the master wall into statuary, not cleaning it up with the 3rd, and Achieve all the way downstairs. The consistency of Crazy running the IQ, I imagine, would probably convince Achieved to not run the ERC 24/7 whenever it's available. Vandal now will be ripping open some floorboards and try and garner some purview onto any of the defenders playing in the common anchor spots, most likely in behind that island inside of dining room, and possibly at the kitchen doorway looking up through some kill holes towards the bathroom.
One thing that's not really talked about a lot by people is how the loss of an ACOG on the R4C fundamentally changes the way that people will play Ash. And the way that Rise Nation has been using Vandal on that role is not your main engager. They're still largely keeping Crazy and Hyper in that position, and Hyper will start things off. A minute and a half into the round, he'll collect 1 of the heads of Excelerate. He'll lose Crusher. But you keep Vandal on this flank watch as Ash with the G36C and an ACOG on it. That's a position to just be able to hold static and let the rest of his team do the work that's needed. The soft destruction of Ash that often isn't used for anything other than just clearing barbed wire or maybe any impediments towards the site will now be used for vertical pressure. You got no buck, you got no sledge, you might as well use that breaching round, right? That's exactly what it looks like Rise Nation is going to do, as they're now knocking on the door. Oh, poor timing for Crazy, as Achieved will peek on in and take him down. And Vigil, with his electronic cloaking device, could have possibly been able to outduel the IQ in any other circumstance, but you'll lose the information gatherer on attack. And now with only 30 seconds to go, things will begin to heat up. Both teams will be on even footing for the remainder of the round.
Gonna clamp down horizontally with one member remaining for Rise topside as they try to push through the memorial room and the laundry closet. Got Acid quick peeking the door and behind the deployable shield, but you still have two flankers for Accelerate. Chief does not push back into the backside memorial room or flanked around to the kitchen door. Thomas lands a nice shot onto Acid. The Nomad trying to push him through laundry. England rattling off shots against the box frame, and he'll collect a kill onto Bio, leveling man count once again. This will force Vandal downstairs to try and clamp in on a flank. Schlong will trade him out, but not before he grabs the kill, and Hyper brings it down to a 1v1 now. Thomas against Hyper, but no time on the clock. Wild pre-fires will not connect on anything but a deployable shield and a few bricks on a wall. So we level once again at that's a 3-1 lead now.
That is. And I was mentioning the Ash play of Vandal. Playing above, using your breaching rounds, open up the floors. Villa has lots of surfaces where you can use those angles either way, down below looking up above looking down below. And I didn't really see Vandal using it all that much. Now, whether or not Rise's idea was to just simply put pressure on and maybe hold rotations from Accelerate, I'm not entirely certain. It's something you'd have to ask them. But the way that Vandal did that did not appear to be that consequential to the round. And in fact, as an Ash, he's a 3-speed. He can get into the fray very quickly. By the time Vandal was called, it looked like it was all for naught. He got gunned down, not being able to accomplish all that much. And then you leave Hyper in a position where the diffuser is basically a mile away, even though it's at the other end of the room, and you just don't have the time to do it. And once again, it's Tomas who is able to wear down the rest of the team. I don't know what's going on with Rise and why Crazy hasn't really been utilized as IQ to be able to find those goo mines, or why, for example, there's not a Thatcher that's coming in to possibly displace a couple goo mines as well. But Rise Nation keep getting foiled by one operator in particular and taking their sweet time. 30 seconds left. It's a 4v4. If you've got good control around the site, there's a very high probability that the attackers, if they have the utility as well, can make that work. You've got a Zofia. You have the ability to basically concuss anybody in front of you. You've got air jabs for anti-flank, but if you look at Rise Nation with an IQ, a Hibana, and an Ash, outside of flashbangs, you really don't have all that much, other than just pure fragging potential with your gun to affect the defenders on site. All the while, Accelerate is bringing a lot of utility-heavy operators with C4s, with yokai drones, with toxic canisters, etc. They're better prepared to just ride out the final moments of a round. Rise Nation need to be faster on those executes because just the way that Accelerate is playing it, very patiently, well, it's really tough for Rise to be able to do all that much, even though they come so close.
Yeah, we talk about time management a lot in this game, and it seems like Rise, their first phase of their progression is quite swift. They're able to make it in and have some pressure right outside of the site. Crazy, though, felled by a flank by Thomas in tandem with Bio's Yokai Sonic Blast. Now, England will try and reciprocate as launching out some flashbangs, but errantly, as they won't connect on anyone, as the full retreat from Thomas and Bio back in the objective. When we've seen this double peek from the top of the south stairs multiple times over from the both of them. This is the first time it's actually grabbed a kill for them, though. Hyper doing damage and pre-firing into the same spot that he was pre-fired from last time by Schlongy at 90. A little bit of an extension there from Thomas out, and here comes Schlongy. Looking to peek around the corner, but hitting the deck this time, as opposed to peeking crouch height. It's a familiar territory to be in here, but looking up through the floorboards, Vandal whiffing on the shot, cannot land a single bullet up through the floorboards and takes half his health in return. Achieve will walk away scot-free. That's a bad look to be in if your Rise continuing to stall out on this staircase.
Very heartbreaking if you're looking at the way that that was played. It looked almost certain that Vandal was going to be able to walk away with that, but it doesn't matter because Rise is still able to get a kill. Achieved essentially throws his life away, putting himself in danger just inside of the study door. Go back to a 4v4 with Schlongy anchored down inside of 90. This has basically been the doctor's office so far. He's going to overheal again. He's going to sit and wait. He's got the bulletproof camera there as well. And now, once again, up to Vandal to see if he's able to do too much. Keep in mind, it was Vandal who was able to pick up a kill in this particular area as there was an arm that was sticking around that barrier, Schlongy under fire from multiple flashbangs, just waiting to see if the head of the Ash can be spotted. He's going to test his trigger finger here as the Ash is just going to play around with the window, absorb a little bit more damage. Vandal was weakened earlier in engagement, and we'll see if Schlongy's able to cut him down. There you go. Beautiful play, but he's under watch from a drone. It gets all the way up. He'll stop for the moment as once again both of these teams will just sit and wait, and now Rise don't have a ton of time to deal with. Once again, Excelerate, everything working in their favor with utility, the opportunity to slow Rise down. Schlongy gets very aggressive, but it's 2 from Rise to give them the advantage, and 10 seconds left with a Rise can make it in on time. Bio on the flank, cuts down Diffuser. You're gonna have to go for kills. Can he hold it off? 5 seconds left, Diffuser being picked up, but now Bio will find himself in significant trouble. Does he have time to knock out a player? Yes! The utility from Excelerate, as this is now 4 rounds that they have just been given opportunities and taking them every step of the way. A hell of a streak for EXG, and they find themselves rewarded, up 4-1 in their very final defense.
Schlongy ought to give Bio a hug after that one. That was so close to being such a throw from Schlongy. He didn't need to push up that hallway. He could have played his same position from, like you called it, the doctor's office at 90 and behind that turned over cabinet. Pushing up the hallway, Rise respond with 2 quick kills and suddenly a man advantage in your time with desperation just flowing out of Rise. Turns and actually it rewards them. Their speed, their efficiency, and honestly, their insane pace and lack of control, really, as they tried to push into the site through every possible doorway. A huge clutch there from Bio in a round, and honestly in a game where he hasn't had to do a whole lot. He's had 2 clutch scenarios, and he's been able to win them both out so far on the defensive side. Is that Echo? Wonderful performance from him, and honestly, keeping his team in a scenario where there were a couple rounds there where it looked like EXG were handedly in the lead, whether it was man count, whether it was time control, whether it was utility remaining, and then all of a sudden, EXG just got a little too greedy, a little too antsy, positioning a little too aggressive, and Rise makes them pay for it, but Bio is that saving grace. He's that safety net for them. Beautiful round there. We stand at a 4-1 lead now. It's the last round of the first half, and EXG will look to wrap things out inside of Trophy and Statuary.
I am a little confused as to why this map made it through the map ban phase for both of these teams. Keep in mind that the very first time that these teams tussled, in fact, the only time so far this season that they have done so in Pro League was here on Villain. It was a 7-2 victory in favor of Excelerate. And that was, I think, really the big coming out party for Achieved, and you could really see what he did as he played Buck masterfully. On windows, on rappel, just simply underneath as well, with the rest of the team being able to capitalize on his soft destruction and what he could possibly accomplish with those frag grenades too. In fact, earning a lot of comparisons to BC from Dark Zero with those throwables in his hands. So, you have Rise here, who we've seen on a number of occasions play Villa. We saw them play it actually quite a fair bit in the 6 Invitational qualifiers going back a couple months ago. But you know that Excelerate already beat you here. I know that it's a different team for Rise. It's a completely different makeup. They've got a coach now. They've got 2 new members on the team. The bans are also different. At the time, there was a Ying ban on the board because you know how much Vandal used to play that Ying. Now you've got Vandal playing on the Ash, so there is definitely a change on Rise's side. But it's questionable decisions from Rise, and they must, I suspect, think that they've got this map figured out a little bit better. At the current moment, it does not appear so. With the halfway mark, as more map control being taken from Rise, they had stumbled to really accomplish anything in the first minute and a half previously on Trophy and Statuary. In fact, it was actually a very aggressive play by Tomas that was able to crack the round open last time. He's playing a lot more conservatively, and Achieved, who's been the opening death for Excelerate far too often, finds himself in a position where he's narrowly that position again.
Playing downstairs inside of that memorial room as a mute with a nitro cell. So we're going back to familiar form here for Achieve, but very low on HP. He'll retreat up the astronomy stairs and got docked back up. So Schlongy won't be able to overheal himself as he has been doing essentially every possible moment of this game so far. But Achieve back up to about 95, and he's prone crawling his way across to safety all the way over to that statuary door on the connector. 40 seconds, though. Deceptively quick round here is now Thomas waiting and laying in wait for Rise to push in through the door frame. You've got one on cameras inside of Master, but look at Rise again at a 5v5. This is looking to be an absolute gong show and a complete panic fest for both teams. Multiple stacking inside of the connector between Astronomy and Statuary. As Crazy has just made it inside of the door frame. England going for a default plant, taking damage from the Toxic Babe. He's going to have to retreat. A trade now as Crazy grabs one, but immediately dropped by Bio. And we have a lot of 4v4. Hyper pushing in through Trophy. Has it with another one, and Bio able to trade one back alone again. And he's able to drop the diffuser. 2 seconds remaining. 2 on the floor. And Bio again in the clutch situation. You've got to be kidding me. Rise. Another situation where Bio is the safety net for EXG.
You've got an Echo on the board. It doesn't matter if he's taking fights with his ACOG. It doesn't matter if he's taking fights with that bearing. It doesn't matter what he's doing. He's still got the plant denial as well from the Yokai. And Excelerate have had 2 incredible moments in the final 2 rounds of their defensive stead where it's been saved by an Echo. Absolutely incredible play, and Bio the savior both times. Just absolutely killing it right now in terms of what they've been able to accomplish, and Rise has not had an answer, though that did look to be the best opportunity for Rise to be able to take a round after round number 1. Need I remind everybody that we now have 5 consecutive rounds for Excelerate. And when we switch sides, you can sometimes see momentum fall off. You can come in particularly cocky, you can get very aggressive with your attacks, maybe play a little sloppy. Excelerate looking to try to close this one out. They're 1 round away from securing 1 point. And Excelerate, keep in mind, are also ahead of Rise. They want to keep some space between themselves in that final 7th spot in North America and not have to worry about putting their spot on the line. Rise Nation have had just as good of a second half as most teams. In fact, they've collected 4 points, which would tie them in 3rd place with both Rogue as well as Reciprocity, if we were to only go by points in the second half. This is going to be a defeating situation for Rise to find themselves in. We saw that cheeky Tachanka play there from England, and I don't know if that's more of a, I guess, a look at them realizing that the map is over, or if it's them staying in good spirits. It really feels like it could be, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, as my mother would like to say. But if you're Rise Nation, try to keep your poise here and realize that there's still plenty of game left to play. We've seen teams be able to come back from deficits worse than this. Chaos did it a couple weeks ago. So keep your head up. It's going to be the very first defense for Rise Nation. No Tachanka on the board. We are going to see something a little interesting. We get that library living room defense downstairs, which is a site that isn't always played that often. Interesting to see the way that Excelerate is going to go for the push on this, because a lot of teams might not necessarily anticipate that is the very first site for any defending team.
Considering it was England on the Tachanka, wouldn't be surprised if, he just wanted to have some fun with it. If you're Rise Nation, though, you're heading to the defensive side. You've just witnessed Excelerate rack up 5 in a row on you. You're looking to do the exact same again. Equalize. Win 5 of the next 6 rounds and make sure you guarantee both teams a point at that point. You stay within arm's reach of Excelerate to push yourself out of that 7 seed, the bottom place team in North America, but it won't be an auto relegation spot this season. Clamping down again from multiple horizontal angles here are EXG. Not a lot of clearing from the top side, though, as we typically see, and a soft wall on the backside will allow Schlongy some purviews. He tries to peek in and identify Crazy playing in the back of that library behind the desk.
I've actually been interested with the way both of these teams have been using Ashe as an operator. She does have her different applications, but not necessarily the main person who is in contact with the rest of the teams. It's going to be Crusher Feld first. There goes your singular hard breacher for Excelerate. So just got a minute to go. And Achieved will now need to fetch that diffuser, playing on the sledge roll as his buck had been banned earlier. It's a counterpunch for EXG that is immediately traded off by England. Still, right now, just roaming endlessly. Schlongy will take one down. Achieved picks up another, and Excelerate once again finds himself in a winnable position, but Rise will answer back. Deceptively quick middle round. Oh, say goodbye to Acid. A beautiful pop-up from Achieved. Will now go for the diffuser being planted. England will have to tread carefully. He's a 3 armor. He'll make an awful lot of noise. They'll be Achieved successfully getting that diffuser down. It's going to be a game of cat and mouse here. It's a bit of a destructive exit for Achieved. He smashes his way through the wall and will now sit outside and guard the diffuser as it hits a third of the way through. England taking tons of time with this as he's completely blind. You see from the lineup from Rise Nation, there's going to be no information and no intel that England is going to have to work with, and he's next to a soft wall. He'll give himself a little bit extra HP and go for the diffuser, and this should be Achieved, knowing exactly that he's there. He'll tag England just a little bit, but England comes around and wins the fight in tons of time as the Doc miraculously performs some surgery on the situation, and it will be a perfect survival rate for Rise on that round. They'll take one round of attack and break the streak that Excelerate had worked so hard for. Rise Nation still quite far behind, but that's a good start to this second half, and they could see it possibly warming up.
It was all kind of falling around into pieces around them, honestly, for Rise there. You saw that beautiful shot by Achieved onto Acid, and he gets the plant down. I did not clock. I should have been paying attention a little closer. I did not clock if Achieved had any frag grenades remaining. I don't believe he did, but it could have been another tool at his disposal to push England off of that diffuser. But nevertheless, it tries to vault in, and England wins out the engagement, close range with an ACOG against an ACOG. Maybe Achieve pulls out the SMG-11 there and has some better luck. It's all hypotheticals at that point. England still, like you said, using a lot of time there because there was no info on the site, but the patience paid off. He didn't overstep his bounds, he didn't get ahead of himself and rush into possibly a crossfire from a different angle that he wasn't aware of, that Achieve could have been playing from God knows where with the sledge. Could have made any myriad of holes that he wanted to have vision on the diffuser. So good patience and honestly good demonstration of veteranship there for England. Obviously a long-serving member in Pro League, demonstrated there with that 1v1 clutch and defuse. So now it'll be Rise Nation bringing one back. You know, you lose 5 in a row. Obviously it's very demoralizing. At that point, you're trying to refocus the team and take everything one round at a time instead of focusing on the giant chasm that stands between you and your opponent. Almost identical operators coming out for Rise in the defense that Excelerate we're bringing. Hard to disagree with them, although the Mira being allowed through, when Villa first came out, Mira was the mainstay if allowed through. Honestly, deciding most pushes and being the focal point for a lot of attacks and defenses, although allowed through in this game, not a single round play with him so far.
It's interesting because if you look farther down and not in Pro League, but the levels beneath Pro League in terms of competition, it's actually quite easy to see a Mira get played here. But I think a lot of that is because teams aren't comfortable holding map control below the sites. It's very similar to Penthouse Theater on Coastline, is that you're expecting there to be a lot of presence underneath the site. And Penthouse Theater is very difficult to hold because of that, especially if you've got a Zofia in play, a Buck in play, a Sledge, anything that can potentially take the floor out from underneath you. And the same thing applies to this site. You saw Biologic down below. Here he is again, trying to chip away at the floor on which the defenders are going to stand. We've seen other teams do this on Villa time and time again, and running a Mira here not just means that you're going to lose that vertical fight, but you're additionally going to lose the Miras because it's very easy to just pop that Mira window from below. Safer to just play farther back, over by the bar side, over by the vault, and just possibly wait for the attackers to push on in, and instead of bringing the Mira, maybe bring another info operator. You've got your Echo, you've got your Valkyrie that can be run. Rise Nation are forgoing these operators, which I think is very interesting outside of the Echo, but still it's a different play style. And if you know that there's going to be soft destruction beneath you, you might as well play in positions where you're not in harm's way.
It's like we're watching a rerun right now. Got a member with flashbangs coming in through the 90 window. The only difference right now is Schlongy on the Jackal. Constantly ping out Hyper, and the frag grenades coming in from Achieve. So different positioning on the orientation of the operators, and they're going to continue to push Hyper back and back. But the overheal from the Doc, a little bit of damage, but the waiting arms of Schlongy just right around the corner inside of the master connector. England, though, will be downed. Not sure if that was a frag grenade or just shots down from below, but Hyper will collect a kill onto Achieved and angling in for a second one onto Crusher, taking a lot of damage. Bio as well, low on HP. Thomas will finally collect a kill onto England and behind the site, but you're very separated right now if you're XG. The spacing very far apart and low HP for 2 of your members still trying to ingress into the site.
Schlongy here could be the X factor. Oh, he just barely misses on Hyper's head. Vandal takes down Tomas, and it's Rise once again putting a lot of work into this push, and it all really stemmed from that opening in the bottom of the floor of Study. Now, Bio was firmly in sight, but nobody is going to feed themselves to him except for Acid, traded off by Vandal. And oh boy, Crusher's got a really tall task ahead of him. playing around this bomb chassis. He does have the woodwork around the bar, but it doesn't matter. Hyper, who played so well in 90, simply surviving, being able to outlast all of those frag grenades from Achieved, is just going to tap away. And it's yet again, Rise Nation, starting a streak of their own perhaps, really showing us that while the meta might be shifting more towards an attacker-sided affair, Villa still remains as deeply entrenched for the defenders as ever.
Last week, it was Evil Geniuses on Coastline, up 4-0. And Rise Nation put 6 in a row together. Are we seeing a repeat here? It was 5 rounds in a row for the side of Excelerate after Rise got the first round on the attack. Could this be a repeat of last week? Again, the resiliency from Rise last week was put on display, a complete demonstration, a remarkable feat to witness. And we now head to Trophy and Statuary, where Rise look to continue their run. They've won, like we said, Library and Living Room. Not a very common sight. They win that off rip in a beautiful clutch by England, and then in that round, a much more decisive hammer swinging down onto EXG on their attack. For EXG, again, spacing on that one was a little off. Just a lot of separation between a lot of the attackers, all trying to make individual pushes. I was surprised that Schlongi was not trying, like I said, to coordinate with Achieved and collect that kill onto Hyper, trying to push through Trophy and get into the double doorway connector as the frag grenades kept pushing Hyper back. But Schlongi was all the way over in Master trying to rotate around and eventually got picked off, I believe, by Crazy. I wasn't really sure who got the kill at the end there, but it seemed like tighter spacing for EXG on the attacks there might have been able to slowly pick apart the individual nature of the defense from Rise.
Rise will once again go with a lineup that has good killing potential, but I like that Rise is now bringing more and more progressive info gatherers. You know, you had the Echo who was added in the previous round, and now you have a Valkyrie joining the fight this time too. I mean, it worked for Rise. They don't necessarily need to have all that information at their disposal. They've got some good gunners, as the kids would say, on behalf of Rise, and the whole team is actually pulling their weight when we saw that scoreboard flash for just a little while. There you go. Look at that. A pretty even split. And as much as we don't necessarily give an awful lot of weight to kills, Rise Nation still doing a good job to keep everything together. Even their support players are finding the scoreboard in a variety of different ways, despite the fact that they're actually trailing in the match.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. The hilarious part is it actually appears from the scoreboard that Rise Nation are leading the way in kills. That has to do with Bio winning a bunch of 1v3s by just downing the diffuser or using an Echo drone. They get the wins off of utility instead of just pure fragging potential. And speaking of Bio, he'll be down below as the Ash, trying to disrupt this bandit trick from England, down to about 5 HP. And the Kairos will finally ring out and detonate onto the wall. Looks like they won't be interrupted by England at all. He still has a Nitro Cell to launch over those impact holes, should he choose to, but now he's going to be pushed back by these rotate punch holes that have been poked open by Crusher, and it's a good beginning to the round for Accelerate.
When I said that teams like to be able to take the floor beneath you, that's a perfect example. And I'm glad that we get to see that for people who need a visualization of it, is that if you're running a Zofia, if you're running a Sledge, a Buck, a Jackal, etc., you have the opportunity to do that. Bio's job is done. Prevent the bandit trick. You lose the wall. Rotate now over to Astronomy through holes that are likely opened up by the defenders. And you can just sit there and watch the rotate hole that's going to be between the site and the Astronomy wall. You know that somebody's usually going to be playing there, as there's typically a body contesting inside of Astro behind the desk. Likely that Accelerate is trying to figure this information out, but Bio's going to go in blind for the time being. Shotgun in Vandal's hands will await the Ash, and oh, it's England takes out Bio through those holes from below, and Schlongi's just going to push right up. Nobody expecting it. Schlongi gets one. England wasn't very much left for this world. And down Schlongi will go yet again. This is EXG circling the wagons around the bathroom door. Schlongi knows that there might be a body behind the shield, cannot outduel him. It'll be a stead for Vandal with 2 kills around the deployable shield. Crazy will pick one in the crossfire, and Rise have everything going for them as they'll pick up their 3rd round in a row. And Rise now, you mentioned it, seemingly firing up. They did this last week and they're doing it again, as Excelerate Gaming likely having a little bit of a fright now, finding themselves down 3 rounds in a row. They're still leading, but Rise hot on their heels.
You can really see the effect of the Buck ban coming into play here, especially on these trophy statuary defenses.
Absolutely.
A lot of these defenders remaining static in very common positions, but you're only sending the Ash down below to really do a lot of work with verticality. Like Schlongi, as the Jackal, was at the bottom of the stairs, but He was more focused on flank than using the shotgun to fire up through the floorboards and displace any anchors from common anchor positions. Vandal and Astronomy behind a deployable is the crucifix on that round there. Like, there's no real progression for EXG on the attack through bathroom. They all line up, and they all fall down at the hands of Vandal. And a Buck in that position, blow open the Astro hatch, send some frag grenades, remove the floorboards from underneath them. That's an entirely different ball game at that point. Big ban, and it works out.
We praise support players an awful lot because they do things that go unseen and are able to aid either your frag getters or whether they aid the rest of the team in a variety of different ways with utility, but you also have to give them a little bit of condemnation when things go sideways. And in that round in particular, it looked like there were two drones that had assembled themselves on the Astronomy stairs, but neither of them were able to make it up to the top to be able to give the information to the rest of Excelerate. Hey, there's somebody playing behind this deployable shield. Let's put some pressure on this. There's a Jackal below. Schlongy has the shotgun in his hands. He can open up that floor and put pressure on Vandal playing behind that deployable shield. You know that there are those pre-placed holes. The Astronomy rotate that we even mentioned where somebody usually likes to play. And it was England who was playing near there, watching down below. But you as a support player are likely trying to drone in your entry, in which case was Bio. And hey, that just didn't happen. And I was a bit surprised that Excelerate did go in blind to Astronomy, knowing that there might have been somebody holding across, even though Excelerate also had bodies in bathroom. That information either wasn't relayed or Excelerate just did not use the tools appropriately. Either way, you can't be making those kinds of mistakes when you're in a position where you know your best player has lost his best operator on attack on a map that Buck shines on, and now you're going up against a team that has seemingly refound their groove, who will now try and win yet another in a row and tie things up on a site that you might not be prepared to attack.
Came down to the 1v1 between Achieved and England last time around, and we're going to go back to living room and library. This game looked like it was completely out of hand and heavily in the side of Excelerate Gaming, but surrendering 3 in a row now as the first smoke will come out from Vandal, slightly early here, but it does do a little bit of damage onto Achieved into the hallway as he's able to sledge open that one remaining soft wall again. And that was the point at which Vandal had died from in the last time he defended in this exact same position. Dismantling the drones that keep flying in, but Achieved, there we go. The frag grenade's coming in. You take away his Buck, but he still has a sledge. Vandal will fall, and there goes your smoke, only getting a little bit of utility out, and really only doing about 25 damage in the process. Not stalling out a lot of time either, but again, same situation last time around for EXG. They are not pushing the top side hold. They are letting Hyper have his way upstairs and use these kill holes down below.
And there's not really a lot of plant denial either from Rise, right? You lost the smoke, but Vandal had already thrown out at least 2 of those toxic canisters. You've likely got a C4 in the hands of Crazy, but that's really going to be it unless Hyper can drop a C4 below. He's got one in his possession, so he can possibly be tagged in if need be. But you're very right. Very minimal map control from above, and it's England who will cut down Crusher as the pace will begin to speed up just a little bit. Beautiful pre-fire from Schlongy to eliminate England. The miraculous final seconds of that round that were performed by England will not be able to happen yet again. That's an easy kill for Hyper as he sees one body on the stairs. Another will find themselves in the crossfires of Rise as things are going very well for the defense for the time being. 30 seconds left. Achieved will just sit, post up on the window, waiting for Bio to get in position. Bio will tear through the door, and Achieved will now find his way in, but he's gunned down. All of the angles being held by Rise, and this seems like a hopeless endeavor for Bio, who is so good on defense, but can lightning strike twice with him on attack. The answer as the sky starts to get a little cloudy, but they think better of it as Bio with 1 HP has no entry into the site, no diffuser. The round is essentially over, and Rise Nation will hold on, even as Acid collects the very final kill at the last second. Largely impactless, as there was no way Excelerate was fighting their way out of that situation. We got a tie game. We got these shades of the EG Rise match last week. Excelerate Gaming only have 1 letter between E and G right now, and that's an X.
The biggest shock, and I mean, it's Villa, right? We talk about how defender-sided Villa is. We talk about the amount of influence that defending rounds have, and if you can just grab a couple attacking rounds. Honestly, it was Rise grabbing 1 attacking round so far that has put them back in the driver's seat here. They've made an incredible run back, just as they did last week against EG, honestly, to an order of magnitude higher. Same differential as a 4-round deficit that they had to claw back from, but their opponent was 1 round closer to securing a tie. Now, we stand at a 5-5. We will go the distance on Villa between Rise and EXG. It feels like the SI curse is returning. But this is where, if you're Excelerate Gaming, you need to alter the strategy. It looks like Thomas onto the Twitch is their response, and Crusher onto the IQ. Bio heading over to the Breach to Excelerate. Swapping up roles, honestly, throughout almost the entirety of the roster, only Achieved and Schlongy sticking on their primary roles from the beginning of this game on the attacking side. Rise not swapping up any operators, and looks like they'll continue to try and hold down 90 as their pivot point, with Hyper doing a lot of damage on that dock, just continuously and extremely elusive inside of 90, much more so than Schlongy. Schlongy was taking those direct engagements as the dock at 90. Hyper is very elusive. He's very slippery and hard to pin down.
It was Achieved who expended both of his frag grenades to try and get Hyper, knowing the dock was going to be in that position. I think he might have hit one. Speaking of hitting, it's Schlongy who's going to be able to take quite a chunk, actually, off of Hyper's life, as Hyper just kind of wanders through a window and very easily shot through that barricade. We'll have to use one of those stim pistols a bit early, and like you mentioned, elusive. It's going to be very slippery as he's going to move on over to the main stairs, just waiting. This is an interesting position that we see from Rise. They're all over the map right now, and if they can prey upon the fact that Excelerate are losing drones early, put EXG in a position where they might be going in completely unaware of somebody being nearby. Every single door is reinforced or barricaded, and Excelerate are just going to smash their way through them, as Achieved does his best Juggernaut impression. They'll continue on over.
Well, the impact trick not successful from Vandal, so we finally have an alteration to the strategy here. Excelerate able to vacate 90. Hyper pushed out of his position, just, I imagine, out of the fear of more shots raining in through the windows. But Vandal's impact trick not successful, as the bottom portion of that vault wall will be opened up by Biologic. Also the alteration for his role as he gets down off the 90 window and head down towards the west front door. Hyper will be his first point of contention on the dock, and we still level at a 5v5, and one Yokai drone dispatched of by Achieve now, who carries the diffuser outside of the Aviator doorway. And Rise standing pat, not making any alterations or rotations on their positions. They stand pretty tall right now. You're still at a 5v5, you have a lot of utility on your side. You're down a Yokai, but Acid will collect the kill onto Achieve, so there goes the fear of those frag grenades raining down that Achieve is so proficient with. It's a very good spot to be in right now for Rise to try and stall things out.
Achieve must have peeked that doorway inside of the B-bomb site, as that was where Acid was looking all the way down. There you have it. Well, Silence, one of the best players that Excelerate has at their disposal going into the actual push. Soft destruction still available with Schlongy in there, but it's going to be hard destruction from Bio. It sounds like most of those X-Kairos will get shot out. It's the calm before the storm with both of these teams. Yet another from Rise, as it seems like Excelerate don't have a single answer for the way to attack this site. Tomas does have the small opening where he could possibly go belly in towards the vault. Vandal's going to be there to greet him. Get a couple shots off and not hit anybody. Hyper's just waiting and watching to see if there's going to be anybody to tussle with him over by Study. Bio will unsheath his sidearm. He'll collect the kill onto the dock as EXG finds themselves in a position where it's winnable. But England takes out Crusher, and oh no, Rise Nation finds themselves once again able to hold off this storm. Poor time management for EXG, and there you have it. 5 in a row from Excelerate on their defensive half. And Rise Nation will do the same thing. The difference maker. Rise was able to take round number 1. EXG now find themselves battling for 1 point, as Rise Nation are 1 round away from putting this map in the win column.
And an important note with that regarding the standings, EXG currently set at 9 points in the standings, and Rise at 7 points, currently in the 7th spot. You win this game, you win this round right now if you're Rise. You put 6 in a row together, just as you did last week. Something's in the water with Rise. If you win this round right now, you put 6 in a row, like you did against Evil Geniuses. For the first time this season, you are out of a relegation spot. And you put EXG, a team that looks like they were on the rise, no pun intended, coming out of the break, especially with Pojo coming in as the coach, you now force the team that made it out of Challenger League last season in a precarious spot where they might be staring down the barrel of returning to Challenger League in Season 10.
Right now in North America, you have a very competitive top 4 that is being led for the moment by the Sonics, as well as, I believe it's OC right now?
Organized Chaos in the lead right now.
OC is in the lead. surprising, I think, a lot of people, actually, with how good they've looked so far this season.
Absolutely.
We've looked at EU Challenger League for many seasons and seen just how competitive that is. It's an absolute meat grinder for the teams down there. North American Challenger League's always been very top-heavy. There's always usually been one or two runaway favorites. I think this is probably the most diversity that we've seen in NA Challenger League, as teams are starting to treat it a little bit more seriously. That, and there's greater interest now from organizations, too. You know, Elevate used to have a Pro League team. They picked up a team for Challenger League, for example, now. So it's good to see returning faces, as well as a lot of young talent coming up through CL, being able to flex their muscle, possibly audition for a Pro League team, or just simply earn one as well by beating a long-standing team here. So Rise Nation have, as you mentioned, what's on the line for them? An opportunity to get out of that 7th spot and knock EXG back down. They were the team that were able to qualify last season. I think, upsetting the favorites to be able to be the team that won that spot for North America. Rise have 2 minutes to see if they can take that 6th spot and continue to climb up the standings.
Well, we have Hibana charges coming out. Crusher returning to his typical role on the Hibana as EXG look to try and piece this together and maintain this as a tie. Both teams would get a point and they would keep their 2-round advantage over Rise and keep them locked in at that 7th spot. Tom's taking a lot of damage though, and it's not a good start you want to have as he's going to evacuate his position out on that balcony, and an EMP going to get caught by an ADS. Not exactly doing the damage he wanted to do, and it's Vandal again in this position. The ADSs and the deployable shield will be his saving grace inside of Astronomy, as well as some covering fire from England. Just waiting to watch them all line up in the doorway, but there goes the deployable. The ADS is burnt, same with his desk. It's a troubling position here, and still a lot of time left. Only one smoke grenade remaining as the last one will be expended. Another ADS saving his life as that was achieved. Looking to collect again with his favorite utility, the frag grenade.
I'm sorry, does Rise Nation have 2 Jaegers? How many ADSs do you have in there to catch all these projectiles and throwables? As one will drop on top of Hyper. I don't know if that's a near miss, but Hyper will come up. He'll take out Bio and give Rise an even better shot. Another one will look in as Vandal just narrowly misses, finally finishes off the kill, and Rise poised to be able to hold on. Tomas trying to keep his team in the fight. Contact earlier, but there's Crazy to cut him back down. Hyper there as well. Where is Tomas on Repel? They see the wire. They cut his chances and him down to size. There's very little HP left for this Thatcher, and Rise will have to do a lot of work to throw this game away. 30 seconds left, and patience from Rise will assuredly end it. Tomas will have to, at some point, grab this diffuser, which sits in the midst of the Lion's Den. 2 separate bodies from Rise watching it, and it's all but a formality here. It's a tough break for Accelerate. Both teams looking so strong on defense. How's he going to play the rest of the timeout? Still has some people with deployable shields and different angles in front of him, and that's going to be all she wrote for Accelerate, as this round was over 25 seconds ago. Oh my, Rise. 6 rounds in a row. Perfect on defense. Only 1 attacking round went in favor of the attackers. That was round number 1. After that, 11 consecutive defender victories, showing that sometimes the meta doesn't necessarily always shake out the same way. Rise Nation a big 3 points.
That's another miraculous run there for Rise. I can't stress this enough. Last week against Evil Geniuses, you're down 4-0 on Coastline. You run it back 6 in a row, and you're just narrowly unable to come up with that last 7th round to secure the win and honestly deal a huge blow to Evil Geniuses. That 1 extra point propelled them to 20. That's keeping them close and very close in the running, honestly. There's a lot of scenarios with them making land Evil Geniuses. But now you're Rise Nation. For the very first time this season, you're out of a relegation spot. You start the season horrendously. 0-6. You get a win in the very last week of the first half. You make some roster changes from Crazy and Acid coming over. You bring in Remorse. Then you come into this game. And last week. So many hard positions to be in for Rise Nation, but intrepid comebacks week in and week out for Rise Nation have now propelled them to the 6th spot. And EXG now, you don't want to see them go back to Challenger League. Obviously, none of these teams want to go back. If they finish in the 7th seed, they'll be able to play for their lives. It's not an auto relegation, but it's still dangerous considering EXG had to play for their lives in the CL playoffs, and it came down to the wire.
I ran through these numbers before we got into the actual match as to how good Rise has been through the second half of the season. They started things off in week number 8 with a narrow loss to Space Station 5-7. They have their bye. They beat Reciprocity 7-5, a very close match. You need all 12 rounds in their first game. You need all 12 rounds in their second game. They draw EG 6-6. You need all 12 rounds to do that. And now they eke out a victory 7-5 after putting 6 consecutive rounds together against EXG. Once again, 7-5, needing all 12 rounds. 2 rounds break in those matches against both EG and SSG, and you're looking at an undefeated team. Look back to last season. This is the same core that was the second best team in North America through the latter half of Season 8. We're seeing a very similar run this time around, and I don't know what it is that they need to figure out for the very first 7 matches, but if they're able to do something a little different in Season 10, next season, we could be looking at a team that would be fighting for a playoff spot.
And that's just going to make North America even deeper. And, we talk about the depth in EU and how there's good teams who just didn't have a good start to the season and they're facing the repercussions from that. Same thing could be happening next season for North America. We'll have 8 teams again, thankfully, in North America. And honestly, whoever's coming up from Challenger League, that could be another team that could contend. It depends who it is and how prepared they are and how much preparation they put in the offseason. But I mean, like we've been talking about throughout that match, North American Challenger League is shaping up to be the best season of Challenger League in North America it's ever been.
The one good thing for all these teams that are in the playoff hunt is that most of them have already played Rise Nation. So you don't really have to worry about this new revenge tour that they're doing. The only team that is currently fighting for a playoff spot that will have to compete against Rise Nation is Dark Zero. And that's going to be in the very final week of this season, in week 14. There's a very high likelihood that that might not be a significant match for Dark Zero at all because they might have already qualified for the postseason at that point. So Rise Nation is heating up, and that's great that they're doing it, but it's very poor timing for them because they're not able to really gain ground outside of, as you mentioned, that relegation spot where they won't have to potentially fight for their spot here in Pro League. But we have an interview with them ready, and we'll welcome Rise Nation yet again back into the Pro League studio, and we'll ask them a couple questions. I feel like I tweeted saying that I thought you were one of the best interviews in North America, and since then, I think I've spoken to you 2 or 3 times, so I'm very happy. Congratulations on your victory today.
Thank you. Yeah, honestly, the team just has a lot of mental composure, and it's not shit you see every day.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Comeback Nation. Oh, it's okay. Comeback Nation.
First question, right out the gate. You took EXG to Villa, your very first matchup between these 2 teams. You got clobbered. You come back to Villa. Why? Take us through. What was the change that you wanted to see to go to Villa? What was going to be different?
We were a different team. And we knew it was going to be Villa throughout the entire week because, we knew we had the decider who picked the map. And honestly, the past 2 weeks, we've almost lost matches to one player, and it's getting annoying, right? Lax just almost single-handedly brought Rec back. We threw a couple early rounds versus EG. Geo dropped 19. Last time I played a Cheat, he dropped 20. So we decided, screw it, we're banning Buck. We're going to take away his best weapon. And he's still a good player, obviously, but you take away that lethal option, and obviously you saw how close the match was. In offense, they really struggled without his entry presence and his he's a great player. He can clutch every round. He can get triple entries. I teamed with him before. He's composed. He's calm. So we took that away and we tried to just abuse it. And obviously we went down on offense, but a lot of it goes to the game plan, but a lot of it's also just we clutched a lot of rounds that that's just us, I guess.
You mentioned that you almost lost to a single player, and while his scoreline wasn't as impressive as others, Bio single-handedly stole a number of rounds away from you, especially when they were on defense. And it's remarkable how that seems to be happening to your team. Now, I want to take you through the rest of the Villa match. Now, you knew that banning Buck, as you said, was going to make him a bit of a weakened player in comparison to where he was. Did you anticipate that this was going to be as defender-sided as it is? 1 attacking victory to 11 on defense. When you banned the Buck, did you expect for their attacks to completely fall apart in a lot of ways as they did? How did you approach that?
Yeah, in scrims, we've been sweeping teams on defense on Villa. Like pro teams, SEAL teams, we've just been sweeping teams. A lot of teams just don't know how to attack library as well as they would like to, because most teams go kitchen. I feel like we can throw people off with that. I don't know. We're a great defensive team. We play together at all times. We like to trade. That's our gameplay style. Offense, there's some rounds we could have had. We stalled out the kitchen attack. That was my bad. It was bulletproof. I was kind of scared of it. I will be scared of it again. But in terms of their offenses, I don't know. They, no disrespect to any of the players, but they seem a little undisciplined. People are just peeking stuff that when no one's there to trade, it's, and when you're on defense, that's just like, that's a fiesta for us, like giving ones, or we can just trade them out. And it was a sloppy offensive game at both teams, but it's Villa, so it's kind of to be expected, but it should have been more offensive wins for sure.
Right. Now, you have a coach in remorse. I know that he's been brought up here previously in interviews in the past, but I'm assuming he's probably more settled into his role, given the fact that it's been a couple weeks now that you've actually had play days under your belt. Is his role evolving any? Do you find that he's getting more comfortable with the coaching opportunity that you presented him? And if so, how is the rest of the team working around any possible strategies that he's putting together? And how much of that is also still staying with the team versus the coach doing it all?
I think we kind of got really lucky. We're looking around for coaches. The first one we tried out, let's just say he was a flop, and he's actually on the other side there. We just beat, but let's put it this way. And Remorse came in, worked way harder than any coach I had before. Did an incredible job. Literally, it's just he's not trying to change the identity of the team. He came in, he recognized what we were, what we wanted to be, and he's helping us improve individually and as a team together, right? The round in betweens, sometimes, teams argue in between rounds. It's big stuff, but it's also just the small individual stuff that's making us more of a unit, like there's no bad blood on this team. We're all we're trying to win, and, we're looking forward to the next matches.
And when you've had one of an incredible streak now through the second half, very reminiscent of last season, as you would currently be sitting in second place if they only counted the second half of the season right now. So I'm sure that's probably no consolation prize, but I look forward to next season. I'm sure as you continue to climb the standings, you got a couple more matches left in the rest of your team. Now, anything you want to say to the fans, to the viewers, etc., before the end of the interview?
Well, I mean, to add on to your point, honestly, if no one snakes my players this time, we'll be good next season. But, you never know. It's off-season in Rainbow. A lot of the NA orgs have a lot of money they're willing to spend on good players. And I've got a couple good players on my team, a lot of them. So, but besides that, shout out to my team. Great mental tenacity. Shout out to Zest. He still doesn't have a permanent spot. He's a challenger-worthy player. I can vouch for this guy. I played Destiny raids with him, everything. He's a great guy, great comms. And shout out to Chief and Rise Nation for the new website's up, risenation.gg. Check it out. That's about it, Antero.
Thank you very much, England. Always a pleasure to have you on here. Good luck of the next couple games you have. We'll see you again soon, I'm sure.
Thanks, Antero. Have fun, man.
Thanks.